All right, well, we're excited to be here. I've got Mike Carlo with me. Mike is the founder and president of Carlo Solutions, which is a data and warehousing consultant firm with a focus on app development. And Mike, I think you've also been running PowerBI.Tips for the last 9 years, right?
Yes, sir.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, I'm really excited that you're here. Thanks for being here. Thanks for taking the time. I know you're really busy. And I'm really looking forward to the conversation. I know you've got a really unique perspective. You're not just navigating sort of this AI transformation in your own business, but you're also helping clients work through many of the same challenges. So, I'm excited to see and hear from you because I think you've got a really unique perspective seeing this from both sides, like what it takes to lead your own team through AI adoption, but what other leaders are also wrestling with as they come to you for guidance. So let's just jump into the conversation over the next few minutes and we'll see what happens. Sound good?
Sounds great. Love it.
Awesome. Well, maybe you can start by just walking me through the moment, I guess, you first seriously considered implementing AI into your own business. I guess, what sort of triggered that shift in thinking for you, and what were you hearing from clients about their aha moments?
Yeah, so I'm gonna give you kind of a two lens approach on this one, right? So as a business owner, a person who owns a consulting firm that steps into businesses and when they're asking for help about various things, I'm also very attached to the Microsoft ecosystem. So a lot of what we build as a company, we build very Microsoft centric products. And so when you look at the AI landscape as to what's out in the market, you have like ChatGPT and all these other tools out there. They're not actually under the umbrella of Microsoft. And you've actually seen some recent news around like Apple seemed to be abandoning some of their AI projects and going for more of these open source smaller companies that are able to innovate faster. You know, as one who's so close to the Microsoft product space, there's always been this like chat with your data kind of experience. Again, because I'm in the data warehousing and particularly the Power BI experience, there's always been this for a long running number of years. How do I conversate with the information, the data that's there, and return results? Like, what's my sales for this year? Is there anything that is insufficient in my sales pipeline? Right? The AI just never really did a good job at this. And so there was very early forms of this that were just meh. It's not that helpful. So we would use it, we would try it, we would show it, we would demo it to customers, but they would be like, okay, interesting. But there's this balance between return on value and using the AI. And so only until recently, I would say probably in the last year, 6 months, somewhere in that time frame, this whole movement around coding experiences. And so there's now a very large movement. I think you've seen a lot of the major players really glob onto this space. And I think for me, it was ChatGPT kind of like announcing we're here, we're in the market. And then you start asking it questions of things and you're like, wow, that gave me a shockingly good answer. And I maybe would rephrase it slightly or change some of the wording a little bit here or there, but it actually impressed you with the response. And so my thinking of this or how I see the journey going, it was the aha moment was, wow, this is something different. And very initially, it was just asking questions and it was providing very interesting answers. And before it happened, I was like, I need the AI to do things. I really wanted to be able to action on something. And for whatever reason, it just kind of landed on like images and writing code. And so that seems to be like a place right now. Again, that's a space that I'm in where it's saving a lot of like grunt work. And so my real big aha moment with like coding things was I was playing with one of these AI coding programs called Cursor. Cursor AI helps you build code and it will provide to you, here's I want to build a web app and it says, oh, here's how you need to build it. And it gives you some instructions and here's what I'll do. And it'll kind of walk you through this. And so the aha moment for me was I was trying to add Google Analytics to a website. I was like, I'll pull open the website. I'll try and add what I need to add in there. And I was asking the AI a couple things and it was doing it. But when I was testing it, it wasn't operating as I thought it would. And I thought, interesting. I'm building a documentation site. I need Google Analytics on top of it so I can track the usage. And it was just clunky. It doesn't seem to understand the project. And so I said, okay, I'm going to just try this again. And for whatever reason, I decided to start from scratch a brand new project. And I told the AI what I wanted. I want a documentation site that has a header bar. I want a left navigation thing that has this in it. I want these kind of pieces of content. I want headers that look like this. Oh, and by the way, I also want Google Analytics. And so in the 4 hours I was playing around with the website to try and get Google Analytics in my old website, I had turned around and built an entirely new website with Google Analytics attached to it, responding the way I thought it would respond, and basically roughed out most of the documentation work. And I thought, man, that's interesting. The fact that I was spending time fixing something and I could just have thrown that away and started over again and given it better examples of what I wanted to produce, I was able to step back from understanding how to write the syntax, the specific bits of code, and I could step back and say, okay, I want to build a website. Make an HTML page, boom, done. Okay, make these things components. Okay, I want to change this to be a React library. And it would do little things. So I still needed to understand what was needing to be accomplished. But I thought, wow, this is really interesting. And that was kind of my moment of like, okay, we really need to, as a team of developers and data developers as well, we need to take note of this. We need to figure out how does our team speed up our work. Instead of us producing features weekly, and we produce features 2 or 3 features a week. Like, can we do releases a bit faster? We're now starting to work with our engineers to challenge them and say, look, you should try to be using, before you go to a human to review your code pull request for code, you should ask Copilot or a Copilot to review your code first. Give me suggestions on things that I've written that may not be right. And so letting the AI scan over your check-in, look at what you've done, take a first pass at that, because that saves me time from real humans, like spending effort on the project to build something. So like if it can catch a couple of those issues first, then that's one less thing the other engineer needs to review on a project. And to me, 2 engineers reviewing the same code is expensive, right? So I'd rather spend $20, $30, $100 a month to have it just do the job for me, and then reduce that time or conversation from 2 hours down to 30 minutes or 15-minute conversation. That's kind of how I'm seeing it kind of evolve for me.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. I think it's funny that you landed on that example, because I think that is also probably the first area where I also started to see a lot of value from AI, mainly because I don't code. I don't know how to code. I've never coded anything in my life. And as a new entrepreneur who's starting his own practice, his own firm, who's out there looking to do a lot, has limited time in the day, I was like, hey, I need some help figuring out how to go out and do some market research. I was like, I don't know what to do. So I went to ChatGPT. I was like, hey, this is what I want to build. I need some help being able to do this, to be able to scrape data, to pull it into a database. And it walked me through step by step how to do that, right? And so the cost that I would have spent on having somebody help build this for me, or another company going out and doing this for me, and the time and the energy I was able to save myself in some of those early innings. Now, was it perfect? No. But I do think there is that piece of, I think what I heard from you is like, there are problems that you were facing that were very real to your day to day, that became very interesting, and that all of a sudden you were like, hey, I could do this differently. And it may not be coding. It may be, it may end up being invoicing, or there may be some other, proposal, documentation, or getting something out to a customer, or follow-ups, things that you can do very quickly and very easily, that these tools will enable you to do.
Another area that I think is another really rich. So thinking about like, okay, we're talking very code technical, like you're writing apps and things, right? Let's step back a little bit. Let's just step back for a little bit more like copyright. Let's step back a little bit for like marketing and image generation material type stuff, right? I run a podcast. It's called the Explicit Measures Podcast, which is a play on explicit measures, which is a part of the Microsoft Power BI ecosystem. That's a play on words. And so part of that is I need to create thumbnails all the time, and it needs to be like at least somewhat engaging. And if you know anything around like social media or building content on the web, that thumbnail is the hook to get anyone to click on your stuff. It needs to be recognizable. It needs to be aligned to your brand, but it also has to be interesting enough to get people in to actually watch the video. So regardless of whatever platform you put things on, I need hundreds of these thumbnails to be created. Now, I don't create the whole thumbnail. I have a template I start from, but there's always like that one image or graphic that you need to describe. Like I'm talking about whatever, my career in a topic, right? Well, I really want to have a little AI generated image on top of that. A lot of YouTube shorts are now doing like people are talking, and intermixed within that is like a little AI generated like thumbnail or static image. And it creates a little bit of engagement because people can't really sit still for more than 5 seconds on something. They need something to kind of like visually look at and stimulating. So you're seeing these things kind of populate out. And I have found that I can chew out a lot more content by leveraging AI. Another one that again, just to speak an example here, is Opus Clip is another program that I use to help take long form content and trim it down. And again, I just want to have a conversation, right? I want to take, as a owner or a business owner, I want to take whatever my time is, and I want to figure out how to divide it into 4, 5, 6 different other activities. And when I started out being an entrepreneur, I was like, okay, I just need to be able to do two things at once. Anything I can do that's doing two things at once, right? If I write a blog post and produce a video, can I just produce a video and have the blog post kind of pop out by default, right? If I'm teaching my team how to do something, can I also turn that into a training class that I can then go sell? So now I'm doing two things at once. I'm training my internal team on something. I'm using them as like a funnel to build out content. That content then can be sold later on. I'm doing a two-part problem. I'm training my people and I'm selling content. So this is where I think AI also spends a lot of really good time. And my challenge right now is there's too much of it. There's too many AIs to know what is good. And you could probably say there's probably like 30, maybe 40 more now. It's proliferating so fast because every single person can now generate this clipping, video editing, shortcutting thing that makes this really rich content for you, which is really interesting, but it also makes it challenging to figure out what features do you actually need.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely that component of like, hey, how do I stay up to date on all this stuff? But I think the other piece of this that's actually becoming more and more interesting to me as like the non-technical person in this conversation is like, you know, I don't think the technological side of AI is really the hard part. There are so many people doing so many things in AI that if you need to do something specific, there is likely a tool out there that somebody has already created that
Yep.
will
Yep.
empower you to do it. Now, how good is it? I don't know. Where is it at on its growth curve and what's the iteration or the versioning? That seems to be getting easier and easier. The harder part to me, I think, is actually the human side of this. So I'm actually interested in understanding from you a little bit more, like as the owner, as you start to think about how do you help your team understand what's happening? Now, again, I think you have the benefit, you're a little bit more in sort of the technology space. So I think people are maybe a little bit more accustomed to this sort of AI and the impact it can have. But like, I still don't necessarily know that fundamentally changes that sort of underlying question that I continue to hear more and more of, like, if AI can do what I used to do, like, what does that mean for me? Like, what am I good at? So as a leader, you're not just now implementing new technology, you're asking people to reimagine how they work and maybe even what their role is in work. And so, and that impacts how they view their role going forward. So how have you started to think about approaching just sort of that broader AI strategy to your own team? And what are you advising clients when you ask them about this challenge?
Yeah, so let's talk about let's unpack this one. Let's talk about my team first internally, and then we'll kind of go into like how I'm advising clients on this as well. I'm a big proponent of talking or distinguishing through the value to time and expense ratio. That's something that I'm really want to put it, because you could do a lot of things in your day that are very AI centric, but if they're not adding enough value for whatever that time spend is or whatever that cost is to run that code or that bit of software, it's not really useful to you. So internally, like what I do with our team is how I've rolled it out, and there's probably many different ways you could roll out AI to companies and teams. I have worked with my best people, right? So you think about what of your team members has the most knowledge and expertise, right? We want to have them focusing on best utilizing their time and skills, right? The deep thinkers, the ones that are really creating good content, good marketing materials, good whatever they're doing. There are levels of people, and some people can handle a lot more. Those experts are expensive. You're paying a lot of money for them to participate in that experience, to actually work with you on your team. So what you want to do is you want to leverage their expertise and figure out what are the mundane things they are doing and how can I offload those off of their plate. And I work with them. So I introduce the idea, like I have to give time and space for this. They're the expert in their domain. They're the expert in what they're doing on their day-to-day workflow. And you have to say, look, I need you to actually have time, bandwidth, space, even though it's expensive for those individuals to do this, but you need them to experiment with AI, figure out what it looks like. What does it work like for you? And again, I'm in the coding space, so a lot of this is, okay, I'm trying this thing called Cursor. You should try it too. Hey, we're trying this thing called GitHub Copilot. Let's try that out. So we almost need a little bit of time to experiment in hackathon to figure out what works best for us. And then once we figure that out, those leaders in those areas, they embrace it, and they actually have to set the direction on how they want to teach it to the rest of their team, right? So let them be really smart, because they need to evaluate. We don't just do something because it's interesting. We do something because it's effective and has high value. And I find that those high leaders in those areas are the ones that I can identify. Here's the best places to apply the AI to make us most effective. And then once they've set the pattern, then you can start delegating that out to the team. So, for example, here, we do a lot of code check-ins, Copilot reviewing your pull requests. This is becoming a thing that we should be doing, right? This is something that we have found some usefulness to it. And again, we try a lot of things. I let the leader determine, did this add value enough? Is it enough value that we should roll this out to the rest of the team? So then you can kind of roll out to the rest of the team, teach them what they need to know. And so that's kind of how I do it in my team. And the other side of this too is I'm always balancing for customers. So what's the customer conversation, right? I think it really helps to know your audience. Again, I'm in the data space, in the data world. And when I look at the knowledge of customer employees that we're talking about, some are at the basic level. Hey, just give me my report. I don't need a lot of technology to it. Just give me it and let it out the door. Others want to write their own SQL code. Others want to do more heavy analytical things. Others have more acumen to really sit down and work with the data, right? So you have to really identify your audience, and depending on that audience, you have to decide what level of AI can you give them. And I think, again, I'm also a Microsoft MVP, which means that I'm very closely tied to the product team and learning from the company that is making AI experiences. Not necessarily building the AI, but they're integrating Grok, OpenAI, all these things into their products, right? So I'm working with them to understand like where their thinking is, and they're teaching me of what they're learning on how they integrate AI into their products. Because Satya at the toppest level has mandated that every part of their product, I mean, Paint has a Copilot in it right now. Who needs Paint to have Copilot? Do you really need it to that's really crazy to me. So there's going to every single part of your ecosystem will have some level of AI attached to it. And so I think my message to these companies is really, again, going back to the value proposition, right? What is hard? What are things that are mundane? And how can you position this AI in front of people? It's particularly right now, it will change over time, but right now, the sweet spot is anyone who's writing code or code level things. The AI is so knowledgeable there. It is really impactful. And let me just give you a picture of my mental model here. And this is what I give the mental model to my customers, right? The mental model is the AI has been trained on so much information. I could never encompass all the knowledge that has acquired. Now, does it know exactly how my business runs? No, it does not. But I can ask it any Python, Java, JavaScript, any kind of question about any language. And I can even ask it, hey, look, I've written this thing in Python. Can you reinterpret it into .NET or write it into some other language? It can understand what that code was written as and then rebuild it in some other code language. So from that perspective, it's extremely knowledgeable. And to your point too, it has read more books than you would ever be able to read in your lifetime. So if you're looking for marketing insights, all the knowledge of people writing all those books have been distilled down into this program that you can now chat with. And so to me, I look at it as it's a super knowledgeable thing that we have to leverage. It is that really a good coding buddy. It's a really good researcher. It's a really good idea generator because it has been absorbing all these ideas from millions of authors into itself. And so I could never compete with that.
Yeah. If we continue to sort of drill down on that, I think that idea of sort of working with your strongest leaders, your strongest employee, team members, whatever, to help sort of drive that to reinforce the value is a great idea, right? I think it does a lot in terms of helping to get buy-in and sort of create a shared vision versus a Mike Carlo vision or a Josh Rogers vision, right? But as you start to work down those layers, right, eventually that work that you were talking about at the very top of code reviews and people used to have to do that. Right. So how are you thinking about people in all of this? When you start to think about your business, I think you told me before we jumped on here, I think you've got 11, 12 employees at this point or team members that are working with you. So as you start to think about that from a standpoint of what do I need to go out and do and hire, or what do I need to invest in AI tools, or what do I need to be doing to invest in my team to upskill existing team? How does that all come together for you? And where's your head at on that right
Yeah, this is going to be a regular investment for any company, right? It's going to require time. Again, I don't think the landscape has settled enough that there's like, hey, go take this course at Udemy or go take this thing and you'll know it. It's moving too fast right now to really even be solid. And even right now, if you buy one program, let's say you buy into the Chat GPT cycle and you're saying, look, I'm going to go buy a premium license for all my employees to use it. Will that be the same thing next year from now? Will there be another one that is going to be a competitor or a challenge? My gut feel here is if you step away from the technology, really what needs to happen is one of the things that I'm going to rephrase my statement here. One of the things that's going to be incredibly important with AI will be discernment. Discernment is going to be so incredibly important. And it's going to be to a level that we've never seen before. It's already becoming confusing. I had a family member bring me a little video, and said, look at the size of this watermelon. He's cutting it with a chainsaw. And I look at this going, I think this is AI generated. I'm like, I'm pretty sure this is AI generated. Like, no, he's cutting it. Like, one, look how clean those edges are. And two, when that chainsaw touches the watermelon, there's like water spewing out everywhere. There's no way this could be like really real what's going on here. This is an AI generated thing. The thing is, people are going to be fooled by the AI. So it's going to write code. It's going to give you market research. It's going to be so convincing on what it produces. You're going to need to really leverage your employees and your team members to really understand discernment. So what does this look like for our company, right? How do you bring up those newer individuals? Right now, my position in the company has been, we have a lot of experts. We're like an architect level company, and we're bringing a lot of new interns. And so we have kind of a lower, pay rate, bill rate, whatever you want to call it, coming into the company. And so what we're trying to teach our team members this is how we do work. I'm bringing a lot of new members into the fold. And what we're trying to leverage is when you move into the AI space, you stop thinking about the mechanical pieces of everything you have to do. I don't have to write every line of code. Instead, I can think conceptually. Step up a little bit higher. Again, using that discernment. And then when it does do things for you, you have to really step back and say, did it actually work? And is it actually doing what you want? So there's a veil potentially that you're going to have in your companies around the AI will do things, but how do you verify that it's true? Let me give you an example here. So the AI is able to now scrape websites. If you have a website, you'll see that your web traffic on Google Analytics will be going up. And you'll see, I have directly seen Google Analytics taking a large decline on my website. Back in February, it was like maybe 1% of my traffic was coming from ChatGPT. Now it's a lot higher percentage. It's almost, and in the next 2 or 3 months, ChatGPT will be having more website traffic to my websites than Google Analytics. And that is a major shift. And so just be aware, I'm gonna predict something here. You're gonna see a drastic shift of revenues from Google moving away from Google because these agents are able to scrape websites, summarize data, and provide back to you the results. So where does the source of truth come from? And what's really the value of Google advertising your content unless it's being advertised through these agents? When are we going to get advertising for agents? When does this show up? It's going to be there, right? It's already attacking Google's market share already. So how does promoted content also lend itself to what these agents are searching for? So all this to say, to kind of go back to your question, like how we're leveraging this and how do we bring in those new employees, right? It's part of our ethos. If you bring it in at the leadership level and you find what's value, you teach your younger team members or your younger members of the company how to use it and how to leverage it well.
Yeah.
And I think that's something you're going to have to spend time on and build space and time for your company to educate your team on what it looks like.
I think it also has an impact in terms of where we spend our time and what we invest in terms of development, even outside of the AI tools, when you start to think about the skills that are necessary for success. I recently polled some folks, had about, I don't know, like 2,500 responses, right? So it was like a decent sample size. It's not huge, but like I just asked a simple question, like, with AI advancing, what matters most? 46% of people said the ability to adapt, and 26% of people said what you said, which was quality of judgment or discernment.
Discernment's going to be huge.
Yeah.
That's underrated. Honestly, that's underrated because people are now beginning to trust AI more and they won't go to the website. They won't go to the source and it's just going to supply answers to you. Discernment, I think, is an underrated feature. Now, I agree. Ability to adapt is also kind of one of my points because I was like, there's too much of it. There's too much to sit people down and say, we're going to train you on a particular thing. It's going to be everywhere. What I will say you should train people on is English language, human written text, whether a language, it doesn't have to be English, it could be Spanish, whatever, right? Just writing things out will become the new programming language. That is the way you program computers moving forward. And so in a recent podcast, I made this very funny analogy, and I think this is also where things are going as well. The ability for you to use and create is becoming a commodity because I can just speak to the computer and it works. This has been the holy grail of programming since day one, right? How can I quickly get my language, what I understand, into the computer so it knows what to build? We've met that now. Now we're at a place where I can just communicate to the computer. And so for those of you who may have watched Star Trek when I was a kid, you would talk to the computer. Hey, computer, I need you to route my spaceship to this planet or whatever. And it then researches the path, it finds out where things it needs to go. Hey, computer, what's the status health on my computer systems, right? It can go through, it can interpret your question from words, and then it's able to then produce to you back the output. So here's where I think things are going. I think the AI is going to be so good at producing little apps and programs, you will not need to build any more apps. You will just talk to the AI and say, I need to do this. And behind the scenes, the AI will be so efficient, it will then build an entire application just to answer one single question. That's impressive to me. And I got to be honest, I thought that was like a fictitious thing that I was kind of coming up with. Last night, I did it. Built an entire app in like 2 hours by prompting the AI to build an app that does this. Hey, I want you to have this icon, make it animated, and then it can describe the animation. I want to jiggle like this. I'm going to have these things in it. They could make an animation. And I said, okay, now add a button to the page and let me download it as a GIF that I can use somewhere else. And it wasn't perfect. It didn't quite turn out the way I wanted, but I built an entire application to do a single thing. And then I could prompt it to say, add additional things to it, add a new icon that does this, and here's how I want to animate it. So you can get very hyper specific around just speaking to it with what you want. And that's what I'm talking about when I'm saying you're going to move away from technical into concept and thinking at a higher level. In all this conversation, every time I've interacted with AI, I can step up a level and not have to worry about the details, and I can communicate in more concepts and general language, and it knows how to get to my answer faster. Yeah. That's the impressive part.
What's funny to me on that is I was talking to my wife the other day, and I told her this. I said, like, if you ever want something to really evaluate how effective you are as a communicator, talk to AI, because you will very quickly find out how good or terrible, in my case, you are at communicating things, because it will use what you said and try
exactly as you said it
and try to produce a result.
100%.
And it is, so I think that's an interesting insight in terms of understanding and that idea of prompting and how we communicate and what we communicate. I don't know, it has me thinking about like side benefits for even our own like interpersonal communication in terms of assumptions that we bring into conversations and the ways that it starts to break some of those things down. So really interesting.
There's a lot of other So again, thinking about how this works, right? I'm going to loop again. I'm going back to the Star Trek-y stuff, right? Right now, right? So there's a whole bunch of other verbal language we're giving it, even in this podcast. Like we're already verbal languaging between yourselves. You're giving me head nods. I'm using my hands. There's a whole bunch of other verbal symbols here. And there's also a lot of history. Like, one thing that was a really interesting concept that came up, and I thought this was really just blowing my mind up. There's so much nonverbal communication. When we talk to the AI agents, it's not able to absorb all the text that we're writing to it just because it's just text. I have to give it every single thing. And now what we're doing, or what we're starting to see now, is add an image, go draw on a piece of paper. So it's very easy for me to do. What does the app look like? What do I want it to look like? What does this? And then you could say, here, Mr. AI, here's some additional visual context. You read that, figure it out, and then from there, build what I want next. And so there's what happens when the AI says, hey, ask me the question on a camera and use the visual feedback so it understands, like, when my eyebrows go up, that was an important part. What does the facial expressions look like? There's going to be something else here that it's going to start needing video as well as all the other context. And from that video, it is going to add additional context to make it communicate better. But as humans, we already do this. This is already given for us. We know how this works. And that already adds context to the conversation. So there's a whole neat layer here of the onion that we're not even ready to unpeel yet.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm sure it's not far off given how quickly all this stuff is moving. So I want to shift.
I'm calling it now so that when it happens, we can come back and talk about it. Like, oh, it showed up. Like, I'm really good at calling things like a couple months before it actually happens. So now that I said it and put it out there, someone you're gonna find the article that does it. Like, I can't tell you the number of inventions I've had that have already been invented, and they invented like 3 months after I said it.
I was about to say, this harkens back to like my table dinner family conversations growing up where my dad was like, oh, I had this idea months ago. I can't believe I didn't patent it myself. Now
exactly.
we're just we're doing the same thing, but it's happening in a much quicker time frame. So
totally agree.
Shifting gears here just a little bit to sort of bigger strategic decisions that you've had to make. So like, at the end of the day, you're running a business. You mentioned it, you've got budgets, you've got competing priorities, you've got shareholders, investors, potentially not you, I know, but like others may have investors or customers.
I'm the investor.
The investor, yeah. We're self-funding these things.
It's funded, so I'm like, I'm really in on this one.
And customers who want results, right? Yeah. And like AI isn't happening in a vacuum, right? So like,
correct.
You're constantly making choices about where you want to place your bets, what to prioritize, and what risks are worth taking. Sort of when you're deciding whether to invest in AI or people, what guides you in that decision?
Yeah. So a lot of my decisions are made in time to delivery. I think a lot of things in businesses, I think the businesses that move fast and the businesses that adapt quickly are the ones that win. And at least if nothing else gets market share initially because they're the first to move. And over planning is just not, I think, a good thing anymore. And again, you look at just think about how the AI landscape has been moving. There's like 1,000 programs. Some of them are going to win and some of them are going to die off, but you've got to be playing in the space and you've got to be making a movement. So I think there's a lot to say for moving quickly, doing things in a secure way. So again, I don't want to move so fast that we're doing things insecurely, but I mean, I'm looking at some of the biggest companies in the world and how they develop software. A lot of them put out a lot of dog food. I mean, they now have a whole bunch of features in apps that are like, hey, this is in preview. That means some dev on a weekend burned this thing out with an AI agent and it's a feature, but we're looking for feedback so we can refine it to make it better so people can actually use it. And then after some runtime, if people stop complaining about it, maybe we'll actually release it to the product. Like, this is how things work. Things are expected to move very quickly. So I'm going to invest and hire people that are very nimble, that they can learn, right? So if there's anything that has slowed an organization down, it's the thinking of, this is the way we've always done it. We just keep doing the same thing. And that is such a closed-minded way of thinking. And I have found that just creates a whole bunch of political noise. It creates a whole lot of friction in the company. So when I'm strategically investing, I'm looking on how can we move quickly? What are the things I can invest 4 hours, 8 hours of time to let someone experiment with something to get a lot of value, or at least evaluate what's going on? That is so important, to let some of your experts have that space. If your experts are so inundated with day-to-day work that they can't innovate, they can't have some space to figure out where AI is applied, the hundreds or thousands of hours you could have saved by adding some AI, your competitors are doing this. They're going to be doing this. So you have to carve out some space for those individuals. And if the investment in the AI is like, well, it's going to take us a half a month to do, I'm probably not as interested in it. I want something that's going to be a better quick hit. And potentially the better option here is wait until the AI gets better. The models are coming out almost monthly now. I read about all these data centers that are like trying to get almost up to like 1 million GPUs to be able to train and produce content on top of things. And how much longer does it take for them to get to that level? And then when does the model get that much better? So maybe I shouldn't invest a ton on this if it doesn't add enough value. So I know you're going to say something. Let me just say one last point.
Right.
I want to come back to the value to cost ratio, right? That's regardless of whatever you're doing. That's the balancing beam you should use, right? If the cost is high and you're getting minimal value, don't do it. It's just throw it away. It's not worth. Even with reporting, every report you build should either make you money or save you money. If you don't have one of those two things, don't do it. It's not worth your time. You're just building something for self-fulfillment at that point, like not worth your effort. So find, play around with the AI, play around with these spaces, figure out what apps are out there that are working well. And when you see one that wows you, and when you see one that adds an immense amount of value comparatively to the cost, that's something worth investing in. So that's just a rule of thumb. I think you can just kind of stick out there, and every conversation you're having with AI or where to apply it is, what's the value it produces, and relative to the cost I'm going to need to get it to implement or train my people to do.
Yeah. I'm going to cardinal sin of an interview here, but I'm going to ask you a question that could take us on a total tangent here. But like, I think you said something that like sparked and brought to mind a conversation that I had, which is this idea of, you said sort of like features that are being released on a pretty continual basis, and some of them are just dog food. What's interesting is I think this idea, and because AI has made it so easy to do things, right now, the bar to get something to market has shifted down, right? Consumers are much more accustomed to seeing things in a non-final polished version. So if you're waiting for that final polished version, you've probably already missed out, right? And so getting things to market quickly, speed has always been important, but it's almost now being commoditized and expected.
Correct.
And
yes.
So this idea that I have to bring some fully polished and I have to look super professional and I can't have any mistakes or this can't go sideways, like those days I think are gone. I'm curious how that connects to or conflicts with sort of what you were just sort of touching.
Yeah. I'll argue that that's actually a very core feature of what we do as a company. We have a core product that we've built that's kind of around software. We do a lot of Power BI embedding. We do a lot of an accelerator to help businesses win quickly with this piece of product and software. But that was only after like trying lots of different pieces of software. Like we have probably 8 or 9 different tools that we've built over the years. Some got a little bit of engagement when they came out, others didn't. And so we threw kind of at the wall, here's a bunch of things that we think will be helpful. Basically, our main mode of transportation, our main thinking around app development is, if it doesn't save you time, it's not saving you money, right? That's kind of the ethos of what we build, right? Everything we build has to be more efficient than what you were currently doing. If it doesn't meet that requirement, we should not be building it. It's not worth our effort. So that is our ethos on how we build software. And so what we do is we build a lot of these time-saving or friction-reducing apps and helper tools. And from those, the ones that get the most engagement, those are the ones that we go invest more time and refine and build better. So there's a lot of like mediocre app stuff out there, which is okay. I think it's actually acceptable. And I think to your point, the attention, let's talk about like software development and features coming out, right? The attention economy is very important here. And just the fact that you're able to like release new things, there's a new little button. I think we're being, even with social media and as it comes out now, it's continually training you to always look for something new and interesting. And so the combination of social media, in addition to software app, AI technology design, it's all pushing towards you can create anything as a commodity. And I'll go back to my Star Trek analogy, right? You're going to talk to a computer. It's going to build entire apps for you that you're going to throw away. And there's an interesting legal implication here as well. If I can communicate to a program, an AI, build an entire code base around a very small niche problem and throw it away when I'm done, where's copyright infringement? Is there no more copyright? So literally was trying to make a whole bunch of icons. I went to ChatGPT and said, hey, I need 15 icons that are fun, colorful, and have a data flavor to them. Boom, I get 15 icons. I'm like, these are decent. And I can immediately roll them into a product or some solution. And then I can even adjust that. I can even tweak one. This is too bright, or this doesn't work right. So the fact that we can create content so much faster now, it's making everything become a commodity. And I think there's going to become a day where trademark, patent right, like it's going to be very difficult to trademark and patent things, because like I literally talked to a machine and it built exactly what I needed. Now anyone can, like, okay, let's expand this a bit more. Let's talk about entertainment, like video games, right? The little games you play on your phone with like Flappy Bird and like it's a little time. What if you didn't even need to write the app anymore? You just went into an app and described the game you want to play at that particular moment.
Right.
And now it just produces the entire app for you within a minute. Processing game. Look, I don't like how this feature of the game works. Let's change it. The colors aren't right. Like whatever. And you can build this stylized experience. And if you listen to like, I think it was Mark Zuckerberg was talking a little about this with like, AI and generation of things like that. Most of ad and marketing material is content material marketing wise that just shows up to you. It's a video, it's a picture. That's it. What happens when the AI knows you so well that it generates a 3D environment for you based on the advertisement? And now you're interacting. Or what if the AI comes in and has an entire chat conversation? Like you're going into a store, but now the AI is presenting itself as an ad that you click onto and you actually engage. Hey, tell me about this ad. Oh, here's our feature product. And it literally talks to you with a video that's rendered on time in real. Like this is possible now. We're getting to the place where this stuff is going to fundamentally change how we look at advertising and marketing, and it could be hyper customized to that user. And again, that conversation with the AI in that video, it's now throwaway content. It can generate it on demand at cheap cost, and you throw it away and move on to the next one.
I think what's interesting about that is like, I think so often, I think the other thing that's very interesting about this from an empowering people perspective is I now have a mechanism and a value through which people can solve problems, right? They can solve their own problems. And so as I start to think about like business owners, as I start to think about people who are working in the trenches day to day, right? It's very easy to now say, hey, like, what's the problem that you're facing? Like, how can we help to solve this? And what would make it look better for you? And
Yes.
at your fingertips, right?
Yes.
Somebody can come, something, AI, somebody, I'm weird calling it a person, something can generate no shortage of ideas for you. And if you don't like it, it's now at the point, and like for me, I have now started, so I initially, when I first got into this, I was like, all right, I'm just going to go just ChatGPT. I'm not going to touch any of the others, right? Because like it knows me well enough.
That quickly fails.
That quickly failed, right? So now I've got ChatGPT, Claude, and Perplexity, and I run all three every day.
Yep.
And I will literally take responses from one, dump them into the other, dump them into the third one to continue to iterate, and then go back around with all three of them all at once to continue to iterate on an idea and be like, okay, great, this is a great solution. And so like for a business owner who's facing a problem or struggling with certain points of drop off in funnel or revenue generation, or they're noticing weird things around their customer retention, like you can very quickly and easily start to find lots of different ideas to experiment with. And they don't necessarily need to be your ideas. They can come from a team level with somebody who's in the trenches day to day based on their own experience.
When do we get to a place where, I can envision based on what you're describing there, right? There's this concept of like, it's not an agent, but it's basically an employee, an AI employee, basically. It's a virtual employee that people, those guys or gals or whatever they are, those things. You can now, to your point, right? When do we start having board meetings with like like again, when's the, hey, we're losing retention. Let's do a jam session. Everyone gets on the call. We're going to sit down on this program and we're all going to like spit out some ideas. And then we're going to just kind of like funnel it through and just say, here's my idea. Let's communicate about it. And then when does all this start funneling down? Again, to your point, back to our mental model earlier, these AIs are trained on way more books than we'll ever have read, way more code than we've ever going to be able to absorb. It's basically, and you listen to these charters of these companies, they are trying to collect all of human knowledge and shove it into a computer. That's what they're trying to do. And so there's not going to be anything that it can't do that we won't be able to leverage. Now, the flavor of this is there's a human, I think, side of this. I think there's also a discernment side of this. And this is where I think discernment is very underrated in this conversation, is because, what's the book? There's a book that you can't predict a single person, but you can predict in like masses, like the mass of people. I don't remember what the name of the book is. I think it's actually like a movie or some kind of TV series that's on like Apple TV. But anyways, all this to say is individual people are extremely difficult to predict. But lots of people are very bell curve specific. And so what you're getting here is, and so someone was asking me the question around this specifically, well, what happens if the AI is trained on bad code? What happens trained on bad thoughts, bad things? I'm like, well, you hope and hopefully there's a weighting of good and bad, right? So if you're talking about just code, there's going to be a lot of trash code it's programmed on. It's not good. It doesn't work. On the other side, there's going to be a lot of really excellent code that's way better performing. Well, what you're probably going to get is somewhere like in the middle of the road. Like if you get enough of it in the door, it will work. It may not be the most efficient thing, but there will be a lot of it. And I think one of our next major milestones or major challenges we're going to see in this AI space is we're going to have way too many data centers. We're going to need a lot more energy. And we're not even equipped right now in the next 30 years or 20 years or even by 2030 to even handle all this extra required compute and energy power that we're going to need to use all this with.
Yeah, you're already starting to see the bad side, right? Wasn't there that recent story about like a recent model, I forget which company it was with, but like tried to blackmail the engineer
Yeah.
because it was going to shut it down. And it was going to shut it down. I was like,
I'm
that's
going to email people bad things about you. Like, exactly. This is horrible.
You're having an affair. This is terrible. Like, I'm going to expose you.
And there was also a Microsoft paper that here's a risk. And again, this is why I think like constant learners are very important here. And so we talk about like risks of this, right? The risk of incorporating AI into your solutions is to your effect, right? You're a single person. You need other ideas to funnel into this. You don't really know if it's all right. You are already forming new thoughts that you're trusting the output of the AI. Now you've got 3 of them, and you're also using other AIs to confirm what your suspicion is about how to fix things. So there's a huge risk here that AIs are going to come in and they're not going to make us better. They're not going to make us smarter. In reality, it's actually making us dumber. It's removing the ability to be creative out of us, and we're relying heavily on these other products. And so I'm already seeing it today. Already. Again, I was doing the code thing last night. The cursor AI went down for like 15 minutes or something. I was like, well, I can't work right now. I don't know what I'm doing. Like literally. So what happens now is you're going to get these moments where if you don't have the AI, and this is where I think companies they're not intentionally trying to do it. It does add a lot of value, but they're also providing an amazing crutch to every employee that does this. So you have to be able to like, what happens if it goes down? What happens if it shuts off? What happens if the pricing model changes on these AIs and they go from $20 a month to like $200 a month? What will that impact be to your business? Because now you've hired or leveraged a bunch of people who can't actually write the code. You're not actually in there reviewing things. So you really have to be discernment about this. And the skills here are, yes, shifting. They're going to change. You're going to be more conceptual in nature, but you're also going to still need to be able to have the ability to learn in a pinch to get down to the technical if you need to.
Yeah, and I think what I see the biggest challenge or maybe the stumbling block that people sort of fall into is, oh, I've got to move quick. And so then as a result of moving quick, I'm not prepared. And when I'm not prepared, then I create a scenario where that crutch is exactly what's happened. And I've actually probably disadvantaged my business over the long term more than helped. But it may feel like I've successfully done something in the very near term. Because like at the end of the day, I think the thing that's exciting to me about AI, and when I think about this from like a business owner perspective, is the grind and sort of the weeds that I get mired in most days have nothing to do with the reason why I got into doing what I do in the first place.
Correct. Yes.
What AI allows me to do is to create in a way of something new, right? And to bring that life experience, to bring those lived experiences, to bring that knowledge and enhance it with tools that allow me to now go and do and apply it in a way that I couldn't historically. And so I think that crutch is a very real one, and being prepared for that and thinking about how look, it's going to happen, right? But how do we minimize the impact of that crutch happening, right?
Yep.
So
the phrase comes to mind when you say that is, history doesn't repeat, but it rhymes. Right. So, and the reason I say this is because we got computers. We're like, oh, computers are going to be so great. They're going to make us so fast and efficient, and we won't need it. No one will be working anymore, and we'll all just get paid money. And like, it was this kind of like really greenfield experience. Well, look at me now. I've got 4 monitors. I'm constantly typing on a keyboard, and now I'm leveraging AIs to do like. It doesn't change what you're doing. You're still going to have to work and do the things. It just totally shifts to something new, a new medium. And so this is the same thing. Like we look at this AI, and I think you'd be disillusioned to say wow, when the AI shows up, it's going to make everything easier. I'm going to have all this free time. That's not true at all. You're just going to shift what you work on to something else, and you're going to be doing different things. And now, instead of doing 3 things like you could before computers, like, dude, remember when we used to fax things, like write stuff out? You'd have like notebooks of paper. Like now, you can send 100 emails and 1,000. Like, so what has changed now is everything kind of goes towards this. It becomes a commodity, and so when things become commodity, I think of it this way. This is what happens with reporting as well. When Microsoft made Power BI, reporting became easy. Reporting became a commodity. Everyone can build a report. That's their mantra. 5 minutes to wow. In 5 minutes, you can get a pretty decent looking report with data in it. Awesome. That's amazing. And everyone's excited about this. But what happens with that is you get some really good reports at the apex of your pyramid. And then behind that is a whole bunch of trash that gets generated at the bottom level. So again, going back to my discernment comment, like, it's now more important than ever. Yes, build 100 things, but of those 100 things, because you can build them so cheaply and easily, is 90% of it throwaway? How do we discern what is the most valuable pieces of content that we're creating in our companies so we can bubble them up and be sustaining them so that way everyone can look at them later on? That's the challenge now.
Yeah. And I think when you extrapolate that down, you sort of pull that thread a little bit more. I think the challenge for a business leader and a business owner is also then, how am I creating jobs? How am I creating roles? How am I creating work that isn't just dependent on the crutch, but actually has value in creating something meaningful, right? And is actually driving value both for the business, but also for the individual, right? Like, I can't imagine like being in a world where like the only thing that I've got to do is like, I'm just copying and pasting prompts into, and then copying and pasting results. Like, nobody wants to do that.
Gosh. Well, and I've also, there's been things that, again, this is a thing that will happen to people. I've been in situations where I'm writing a prompt that is longer than the bit of code I just should have written to go do something. So one of the nuggets I would say here for people who are hiring, right? If you're hiring for people that are technical in nature, let them use the AI. That's totally fine, but do it alongside with them. Figure out a way of like, so the AI will produce code. Again, going back to my discernment challenge here is, if someone really knows what they're doing, you should be able to let them use AI to produce some sort of code and content. And then the user should also be able to not have to go use AI to make simple changes to the code. They should be able to go make the simple change and then move on, right? So if you're using the AI so much as a crutch, and I think this is the cautionary tale here, is if you use the AI so much that you can't do anything else, and it's a one line of code change, the user needs to be having that discernment to know, oh, I see where the problem is. The syntax is wrong. I'm just going to fix the syntax. And then it helps the AI become better. It learns the pattern, and then it can use the pattern. So there's definitely a double-edged sword on this one by giving this one. And I sent you a paper as well, Josh, around this Microsoft paper. I just want to read the title to this. The title is The Impact of Generative AI on Critical Thinking. Right? Self-reported reductions in cognitive effort and confidence effects from a survey of knowledge workers. This is an important paper, and it's just a general thing is, with the rise of Gen AI, how is this impacting critical thinking? And that's the part that is very much impacted, and we're already seeing measurable decline in critical thinking. So it's going to be important that we pull away as well.
This is the absolute core of, I think, ultimately, like, again, probably more theoretical, academic, but I think the reality is, over the next couple of years, like, this is the core of what people are going to struggle with, right? When you start to think about, how do I build a business? How do I retain employees? How do I do the job and fulfill the mission that I set out to, when I don't know what work looks like, and I'm now reliant on, I'm in an environment where the critical thinking I need to be successful doesn't exist.
Let me give you one other kind of nugget here as well. I believe you're describing for me the chasm is increasing in size. All right, so let's talk about let's play this forward a little bit, right? I hire a bunch of new people. They're all using AI. Everyone's hunky-dory. We build the software. It gets out there. Something happens. The AI and someone checks in some code, or something changes, and the AI builds something that is totally broken and wrong. When we step back and say, okay, a problem occurs, either the AI can fix it, it's smart by that time to fix its own problems, or you're going to need this chasm between people who are like not great at critical thinking and knowledge working, and now we have on the other end of the spectrum the people that have to debug the AI code, which is extremely critical thinking and have to understand every single thing that is written. And again, this is very ethereal now, but like the AI knows every bit of language or book or code that's out there. The person that's on the other side of the massive critical thinker, they need to be absorbing as much content as some of the AI things to be able to discern what really went wrong and how to fix it. So there, this middle ground piece, I think the gap is widening here. And my perspective on, I think about my kids and what they use. I want to teach them how to use AI responsibly. I want to teach them how it helps them. And I think it's a balance, but also I teach them, you want to be the ones creating and working with the AI as opposed to the ones always consuming the AI. It's good to use it, but you want to be on the creation side of it. I want to be the one, in those old cars you'd start with the crank, right? I want to be the one designing the crank as opposed to the one doing the cranking, right? So to get the car rolling.
Well, what's interesting is like even now you're starting to see some moves in that. So I don't even necessarily know how theoretical this is, but you're already starting to see shifts and moves away from in hiring at some of the most prominent companies in the US. And I'm talking like huge hedge funds, huge banks, like moving back toward less technical degrees and more sort of like humanities based things, because humanities teaches you how to think. They're teaching you the concept of thinking, how to apply information that's being presented to you, and philosophy and all these different things. Those are becoming much more important in this new knowledge-based economy. And I think they're going to just continue to see that improvement. So I think you've hit on something that's definitely huge there, and definitely something I've been pushing with my kids as well. So
it's going to be weird. We're going to be in a place where our kids. So I've always also kind of taken the opinion that learning is so important. Just having a learning educational mindset is incredibly important. And so if you can adapt that way, that's incredibly important. I'll maybe land on this one final analogy here. All the AI is doing is it's just mimicking what our brains already do today. It's literally the same. It's the neural network is based on the same kind of concept. The computers just aren't able to capture the same volume of what we can do in our brains. And so I was watching a YouTube shorts. I watch way too many of them, and they're all catered to my little algorithm, which is all about AI and other things there as well. So the AI knows what I like to listen to. But that being said, when I look at the thing, the concept was your brain doesn't actually store physical images or files of things. Your brain is an AI, generative AI, video and image thing. So if you picture, your family members or picture them as a younger child, you don't physically have the video stored in your brain, pixel by pixel, what's actually there. Your brain is manufacturing information from the pictures you have around your house, the memories that you've recalled, the things that have been burned into your brain. Those memories, the neural network of your head is programmed in a way that it can generate on the fly the memory. And I think to myself, wow, this is the reason why when an accident happens and you have people that are testifying in a court, everyone has a different perspective because they're all had a different experience and their brains all programmed themselves slightly differently to see the same outcome. Oh, this guy had a red hair. No, he was 6'8". No, he was 7 foot, like whatever. Like everyone has a different perception based on what was going on. And so that's because the brain doesn't store it. It's actually a supercomputer that's manufacturing memories on the fly when you need them. And I thought, I'm not sure if I believe that. I don't think that's right. And then as I thought about it, I thought, maybe it is right. And so there's a verse in the Bible that I'm resonating with a lot this year. It's in Romans, the renewing of your mind. I've just been on this kick. It's really hit me hard. And I've just been like, this is really important. And the fact that I can reprogram my brain, people who have lost hearing, they can get a cochlear implant. Their hearing part is gone, and the cochlear implant is able to send electrical signals to the brain, and the brain is able to reprogram itself to hear sounds and talk again. That's incredible, and that's reprogramming. So, we're just now getting to the point where science is just starting to catch up with things that have been known for thousands of years and have been taught to us. And this is really important, and I think this is becoming so important to me, especially as I think about this. I'm reading a book, Take Every Thought, Every Thought Captive, I think is what is the name of the book, but also a really good read. Your thinking informs your beliefs inform your actions. This is a common psychological thing. I don't necessarily thought I put all those things together. So like, I'm really trying to be more strategic about sitting back and actually thinking about what is my mind thinking about, because that really informs your thoughts, informs the person you will become.
Yep.
That's huge.
Yeah. So maybe like, as we start to wrap this up, like, first of all, I totally agree. And I think there's a lot of really interesting things on that we should definitely explore further at a future date here. Because we could go down so many rabbit holes. But like, as you start to think about sort of where you've been through this transformation, you've learned, you've experimented, you've navigated your teams, you've made some tough strategic calls. Things aren't slowing down either, right? So like, even in the course of this hour-long conversation, I'm sure like some other massive release has happened that's going to change the world. And
Always.
so like, but like, how do you stay ahead of the noise of AI developments without getting distracted sort of by the flood of new tools that are out there? So for somebody like me who's non-technical, like how can we best stay up to date, and sort of work through this like sea of information?
Yeah, I think this is. I mean, the question is maybe even broader than that as well, right? A lot of these major tech companies will always promote the latest, the greatest, the everything that's coming out, right? And so, I think of it. You use the analogy of, right. Some organizations are like a speedboat. They're pivoting quickly. They can make lots of quick adjustments. Other organizations are much larger, and it takes a lot more time for them to make a turn. So you're talking like an aircraft carrier. And some organizations are like a glacier, and they move so incredibly slow, and they're just going to slowly chew through things. So I think you have to, again, as a discerning leader, you kind of have to evaluate what type of organization do you want to be. Are you willing to take on the risk of making a sharp turn in the jet ski or the motorboat to the detriment of your final direction? You may have gone off on a tangent, but can you quickly get back to where you need to be? Or is your organization more like an aircraft carrier where we don't need to make sharp decisions at some point? We have more of the ball rolling. We already have process in place, and we need to be more strategic about our decisions. And so we're going to steer the broader ship towards AI, because if we get too far off base, it's going to be very time consuming and effort driven to get us back onto course, right? So I think you have to really make a decision what kind of organization you want to be. I think you have to strategically evaluate it. You have to be very open to listen and learn. I use a lot of, so my platforms, a lot of Twitter, a lot of news articles, and I also follow a lot of the trends of the big companies. Follow Google, follow Microsoft. They're going to be those teams of people have PhDs that are responsible for knowing everything that's going on in the AI space. So listen and look in lockstep. Don't listen to what they say marketing material wise, because sometimes that's a bit of smoke and mirrors. But I feel like look at what they do. Look at where their investments are coming from. And what you see them doing right now, big companies, those particularly, and this will come back to bite them, it will. They're divesting in human capital, but they're investing in infrastructure. There was a recent Microsoft sales call that was talking about their recent layoffs. And one of their layoffs was they laid off a number of people at the company, but it was to shift funds to building more data centers, shifting funds to build more compute processors. So I think this is going to be an era of time where they're going to shift that direction, but they're also going to need to shift back more towards the human capital side as well. So it's going to kind of ebb and flow. Look at what the big players are doing, see where they're adding value, how they're leveraging these things, learn from them. Josh, you and I used to play in a band together. So I use the band analogy all the time in many conversations. And so the band analogy fits very well here. I need to be in a place where I'm always working with people that are better than me. The band, you have to have that experience where people around you are smarter than you. That's a great place to be in. So again, as a business leader, you have to spend time investing in other people that know this. Hire a contractor. I've always said, you don't need a data scientist full time. Hire one for a couple of months. Figure out what works. Let them have some fun and explore your data in your organization. And then once they've figured out what works, you may not actually need them to continue building new projects as a data scientist. They're going to want to go off to another fun project. Once they've figured out the solution, you can kind of implement that into your processes. So put people around you, put yourself in places where you're going to conferences, you're learning from experts, you're exposing yourself to where the AI things are happening. And I think that's a good way of just kind of keeping your ear to the ground and what's going on. As you can tell, I have the Copilot shirt on, and the words on there, if you can read it, are Copilot told me to say it. Very early on, it was writing my emails. Like, I'm not saying things. It's the AI telling them for me. I just approve them now anymore. So there's going to be this funny conversation in the day where I'm going to write this really long, hey, Copilot, write a really long email that says this. The other side, Josh, you're going to get my email. You're going to say, summarize this stupidly long email so I can read what the summary is. Give me the bullet points. And what we should have done, I should have just sent you the bullet points. Like, this is how it's going to be, AI talking to AI just for the humans to get summaries of what's going on. It's going to be crazy. And all of it, it's Google and Microsoft and AWS laughing their way to the bank because we're spending money on all these things.
Well, it's good to know that you're admitting that, because I will say the last email I got from you, I was like, that sounds too good to be from Carlo. So
True statement.
Too much control of the English language. I'm just kidding.
Well, it's definitely not me. It's definitely every single email. It's like, would you like me to rewrite that for you? It sounds like you need some coaching. Would you want some coaching help? Doggone it. Just let me talk already.
All right, last two questions, very quick. But what's been the most surprising part of this AI journey for you personally?
Yeah, I like AIs that wow me. Experiences that produce like a wow, I could not have done that on my own. That's been really neat. And the speed of which things are changing has been shocking. It's shocking how fast things are moving. So that's really been surprising for me. I like AI that impresses me, that wows me and does things that I can't do. The amount of code it can write, again, this is me, I'm talking from the developer side. The amount of code it can write is crazy high. I mean, it can write thousands of lines of code with a little bit of prompting. That is incredible to me. And that just blows my mind, because had I had to write all that myself, it would have taken forever, or been on some website scraping the content, trying to figure out, okay, I'm going to, not GitHub, it's the Stack Overflow, and like copying some code from there and bringing it in. Like now I don't have to do any of that. I can just talk to it. So really the surprising moment here is your native language is now a programming language. So spend time learning how to do the prompting. It doesn't matter what tool it is. It really doesn't matter. You could be using any technology tool in AI, does not matter. As long as you're able to your point earlier, communicate clear requirements and have regular statements of like, how do you formulate the thought to work with the AI? It's the same thing that when Google came out. Google came out and I couldn't find a darn thing. I was so bad at searching for everything. And it was a combination of the Google getting better at providing results that I wanted and me writing the right sequence of words. And you'll again, we're old because now everyone's not gonna even know it. Like, I didn't have to learn how to Google. I just always known how to do it. You don't even know the right words to respond in the Google query. If I didn't know the right word to say, I would not get the right results. And now we're getting to a point where even that's not important anymore. This is the same, again, history rhymes, it's not repeating. I now need to spend time to physically learn what prompting is, and Microsoft's doing it. They've got I don't know if I have it here still. I had a little index card from Microsoft that says, here's how to prompt. And it gives you like a little, people, experts are studying this and say, do this, do this, do this. Give it context, tell it what you want, give it clear actions, and define the output. Like there's these little things that you do, and it's helping you get better responses. And now we need that because that has to be handed from, Claude and go over to Perplexity, and that has to go to ChatGPT. Like you're going to now need to pass these things between. So I think the really exciting thing for me right now is the chaining of all these AIs together. I think when we initially looked at this, we thought it's going to be one AI to do everything. Totally not. It's going to be hundreds of them chained together in a sequence of things that is going to be very dynamic. Build me an article. Okay, great. Claude's going to do that one because it's best at that, or Perplexity is the best at doing this. And we now need an image or a thumbnail. Okay, here's the requirements of the thumbnail. Very defined requirements. You define that once, and then out pops the thumbnail. So that's where I think things are going to get really interesting for me is the ability for you to, sift out and use that as well. So anyways, I hope I answered your question. I kind of went on a tangent there a little bit.
No, that's great. So last question. If you could go back and tell yourself one thing before you started all of this, what would it be?
I'm going to go way back, honestly. I'm going to go way back to my college days. In my college days, I was a mechanical engineer. I wish I had told myself I was going to love computers so much. I like them. I enjoyed them, but at the time where we went to college, Cedarville University, we didn't have a computer science major. I should have been a computer science or a data major, some data analytics major, something that really jives with my brain. And I think I would have wanted to emphasize more of that space for me. I literally couldn't stomach electrical engineering, but there's a whole, things are changing so fast. The career you're studied with in early college is likely not the career you're going to land in long term, and it's going to shift. And now I've gone from mechanical engineer to call center manager to IT developer, now to business owner. Like, a wise friend once told me, go as far as you can walk, and then you can see farther. And the idea is everything you've learned to get to where you are right now, this moment, that's not enough. You've learned, you've walked the journey to where you are. And then as soon as you get to where I am right now, you can now see a brand new journey. And so you have to continually learn new skills. You're going to have to continually adapt. You will always get to that destination and you will be able to see further. There's more to go. And that's kind of how I feel like my career has been. And so all you do is just try and take the next logical path, which makes the most sense to what you're going to do next.
Yeah, it's a great thing. I think there's a huge nugget there, right? Even for business leaders, right? I mean, like if you and I looked at it I've only been at this for, better part of almost a little under a year now, and you've been doing it for a little longer, but I suspect, I could just tell you after the time that I've been doing this, like where I'm at today and what I'm doing today is not necessarily what I thought I would be doing. But as I've continued to learn and iterate, as I've continued to grow, and I think, if I think again, going back to then looking at how do I rediscover? How do I find what those things are? How do I lever those tools? How am I asking the questions about what's coming up? And then, sort of again, surveying, continuing to walk, taking chances, taking those risks, the things that got us to where we're at today are going to be the same decisions and things that are just going to look different in terms of the tools that enable us along the way. So
other business owners will tell you this, and you hear it a lot from other people. One of the neat things about people is you can always learn something you don't know. Right? Love being around people who are smarter than me. And I intentionally invest a lot of time, money, effort. I go to conferences of business owners that I don't know anything about because they have done this before and I don't know what I'm missing. So that's a really good thing around other leaders, is making sure that there are other leaders that are a stage ahead of you. The things that you do to got you to $1 million is not the same things that are going to get you to 5. And those things that get you to 5 aren't going to take you to 10 or 100. It's totally different thinking all along the way. And you only know what you know until you got there. Right? There's a whole new world of things you got to learn beyond that step.
Well, Mike, thanks again for sharing just your thoughts and a little bit about your story, not just like what you've worked on, but ultimately how you've been thinking of how it's evolved over time. I think there's probably other leaders are going to walk away with a clear sense of a lot, right, from this conversation. And I think there's still just a ton more to unpack. So thank you for your time and appreciate it. So.
Anytime. It was a great conversation. I'm always happy to talk about these kind of things. And I think if anything else, us as leaders, as we figure these things out, we should definitely tell the new leaders that are coming up, like this is how it's going to have to work. And we're all blazing trails at the same time here. So it's a brand new world. Love it. Thank you for the opportunity.